Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm Matt Guthrie, joined with Tight Shorts Timmy with the old 5-inch inseams. How are you, Timothy?
I wore them for you, bub. I know how much you like them.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You never know what you're going to see.
Nope.
When I'm wearing these.
Things will dangle out of them, that's for sure, with those little inseams. So, Tim, how are you?
I'm good, Matt. It's great to be back in the studio. We took a week off, but here we are.
Little 1 week hiatus from us.
Yeah. Hopefully you didn't miss us too much, but we were sad. We were sad that I know Sam at work was like, you guys are going to be back to record this next week, right? Because he was he didn't put on but I think he was a little worked up that we missed a week.
Yeah, he was a little sad about it, but we're back, Sam, so I know you'll be the first to listen to this when it drops Tuesday
Always
night
our
at
first
9
listen.
PM, so.
And we're recording on a Saturday morning.
Woo.
Yeah, it's still morning.
That's different.
It's still one more minute.
One more minute
Till
of morning.
we can call it afternoon. So that's strange for us, but it's how it worked into our schedule this week. So
yeah.
It's great.
So what's been going on the past 2 weeks with you, Timmy? Old Timmy Tight Shorts?
Yeah, we took a week off because it was a holiday weekend and there was a lot going on in both of our lives. Matt was working some, and my family went up to Michigan for a soccer tournament that Amelia's team won.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Which one's the clap?
I don't know.
Not like the clap, the clapping sound. That's what I meant by that. Yeah, it was
what?
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It was like a 3.5 hour drive to a town in Michigan called Canton. All the girls had a lot of fun swimming at the hotel, and they were able to save just enough energy to win the tournament and take home some rings, like literal rings. And it was a lot of fun. These girls worked hard, and they definitely deserved this win.
Awesome. Yeah. Congratulations, Amelia.
Yeah.
And her team, Did she like the keychain that I made for her?
Loves it.
Does she?
Hanging on her soccer bag.
Oh, is it really? Nice. Yep. Very good.
She loves it.
So, yeah, as you said, I worked a little bit and did work around the house and been working on some landscape drawings for some different folks and trying to acquire plants for some of these landscapes. And yeah.
You bought a lovely, I can see it right out this window here, a Golden Shadows Pagoda Dogwood?
Yeah. Cornus alternifolia.
Beautiful green trunk on that thing.
God. I send that picture to you and your wife thinking you guys would be like, oh, that's so cool. And Megan's like, oh, the trunk's really green. Like, that's all you have to say about it, huh, Megan?
Forget the beautifully variegated yellow and green leaves with the new growth coming out kind of pinkish red.
Yeah, and those pretty horizontal branches.
A nice open habit.
So, thanks for nothing, Megan.
Yeah, it's a lovely tree. But yeah, we've been busy at work the last 2 weeks. So here in Dublin where we work this week is the Memorial Tournament, which is a big golf tournament. Sometimes they refer to it as the fifth major because it's Jack Nicklaus's course. It's a beautiful course. It's a tough course. The players love to come to Central Ohio. There's a lot to do here. It's just an awesome tournament, and it's a private course within Dublin, so we don't do any landscape type work on the course, but we do a lot around town to make sure the visitors come in and get a good impression of Dublin.
Yeah, we got to showcase our city, right, Bob?
Yeah. So we need to make sure all our annuals are in, and There's some high priority areas that need a fresh coat of mulch, and we need to make sure the weeds are gone and things like that. So we've been really hyper focused on that at work the last couple weeks. Hyper focused.
Yeah, and we went on Wednesday to the Pro-Am.
Yes, we did.
We got to go and have lunch over there, and we got to see a lot of good celebrities. We saw Steph, Seth, and Del Curry, Peyton Manning, Alex Smith, Rob Lowe, Noah Khan, Larry Fitzgerald, Anthony Gonzalez, Ryan Day, Nick Saban.
Yeah. Gosh,
who else was
you're
over
rolling
there?
through them.
Who else was over there?
That's all I can think of. There was something else, though.
Oh, Zach Bryan. Luke Bryan.
Luke Bryan?
Yeah, the country singer Luke Bryan was there golfing.
And our coworker Maddie, she loves Noah Khan, and she got her. What did she get signed?
Her phone case.
Her phone case.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
That'll be cool.
Yeah. So yeah, fun times in Dublin right now.
Yeah.
But that tournament ends this weekend. It's going on right now. Ends this weekend, and then we'll start to work into our summer lull. So
yeah, that's on my agenda the rest of the weekend. I got some work to do in the veggie garden, and then I'm going to watch some golf.
Very good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oh, stigma anther pollen style. What's a bloomin' crocodile?
Caught me a titch off guard there.
Sorry,
you
bub.
just rolled right into it.
You know, you want to share with these people what's a bloomin'?
Yeah. So, the list is a little shorter than usual. I think what it is a couple of things. There's a lot of things continuing to bloom that we've already mentioned. I think that big spring bloom boom has started to slow down. So there's not as just many things. And we've just been caught up with so much at work getting ready for this tournament that I just haven't been out and about in the gardens and in nature as much. Yeah. So I noticed that potentilla shrubs are blooming. Not one of my favorite shrubs, but I noticed them blooming. So there you go. Sweet Bay magnolia, which is one of our later blooming magnolias. So they bloom with the foliage on. So the flowers aren't quite as showy, but they do smell incredible. Really nice, sweet-smelling flowers. Since we're talking about a tree, the other tree I noticed was tulip trees. I haven't gotten to see a tulip tree real up close, but I've seen some blooms lying on the ground. So
okay, yeah.
Really nice tree in the magnolia family. Beauty bush, which is not beauty berry, but beauty bush, Colquitzia amabilis, is one of my favorite blooming shrubs, really underused. Definitely one to look up if you've got a lot of space in your yard for a big sprawling shrub.
Yeah.
Perennials wise, the penstemons starting to bloom. I can see it right out the window in your garden starting to bloom. Mine's blooming. Awesome native perennial, should be in everyone's garden. Spiderwort is blooming. I think we talked about Sweet Kate during our strap-on episode. That's blooming. It's a native. It's blooming in our prairies right now. Fantastic. And then lastly, the bad one is multiflora rose, which is a nasty invasive.
Yeah.
It's not as bad in our part of the state. It's here, but like down in southeast Ohio, down by like the AEP recreation lands, I've done some fishing down there, and I've got into thickets of that where you literally just can't get through. You just have to go around because it's just so thorny and disgusting. So terrible stuff. So
no bueno.
That's the bloom report, alligator.
I was thinking, I love our jingle, but you know what would be real sweet is if there weren't like copyright laws and stuff, and we could have Nirvana's Emblem playing.
Yeah.
Leading into that. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
It would be, but then we'd get in trouble.
Well, that's why I say copyright stuff.
Yeah. So, and we can't ask Kurt Cobain because he's been gone a while.
Yeah. Yeah. He has been.
I don't know.
Dave Grohl's still around, though.
Does he have the rights?
Probably. I don't
know how that works.
So before we dive into this week's topic real quick, one thing I wanted to hit on is the weather. So here in Central Ohio, it's been cool and rainy, like very, very rainy. And I've had a lot of people reaching out to me with questions in regards to fungal issues on plants. And unfortunately, I think there's not a whole lot that can be done at this point. You can spray some of the different fungicides and things, but what I would do is get a good, clean, crisp image of whatever your plant's looking like and do like a reverse Google search on it to kind of narrow down what it could be, or reach out to your local extension office or nursery or arborist or whoever with these good pictures to get an idea of what it could be. But that just kind of comes with the cool wet weather. It's very the cool and wet weather is just breeding grounds for this stuff, right? To just go crazy. So what I say is maybe if you're able to prune some of it out, or what's nice is a lot of these things are more of an aesthetic thing than they are going to kill your plant. So when the leaves drop this fall, make sure and get those leaves out of there so they're not overwintering, and spraying in the fall. And then again, early in the spring before bud break with some sort of a fungicide to kind of nip that in the butt. But I don't know. I've had just this week, I've had 5 or 6 people reach out to me about this stuff, like peach leaf curl, a rust on fine line buckthorn, which is a common rust in buckthorns. Generally speaking, though, the treatment for most buckthorns is to just rip the plant out and get rid of it. But I know the fine lines are considered non-invasive, so they're used a lot in the landscape. So, probably not going to kill your buckthorns, but unfortunately, if you're in an area that does a lot of grain type farming like oats and barleys and things, these rusts can get in there and really cause damage to your crops. Don't be super alarmed by it. It's just this weather that we've had, but I don't know, good housekeeping. Make sure and water your plant nice and deep when it's hot and dry, so stress leads to these things.
And don't put any extra moisture on the foliage. Try to get that watered down into the roots of the plant.
So just wanted to throw that out there.
And kind of along the same lines, it reminds me that I've had a couple people mention that their annuals aren't taking off. And that is also due to this cool wet weather. A lot of the annuals we use that we're talking about here, Lantana, Angelonia, and Salvia, they want it hot and dry. It's kind of like pepper plants, how once it starts to get really hot, they just take off.
Yeah.
Right now, my pepper plants are kind of at a standstill.
A little stunted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything will even out. It was Kyle at work the other day complaining to me that his Victoria white salvia in his Bristol bed isn't blooming, and it's just just wait. It's salvia. It'll be fine. It just really wants that hot, dry weather, lots of sunlight. So just be patient with that stuff.
Be patient, people. So, all right, cool. So enough talk about all of that little PSA there. On to the third and final episode of our foliage feature. So we've talked about big, bold foliage in the landscape. We've talked about with the get your strap on, this long strapping grass-like foliage. And last but not least, we got a delicate, fine textured leaves.
Yes.
So these delicate, fine, maybe cut-leafed type plants that are going to complement the big and bold perennials and the strappy-like perennials. So we're just going to dive in on this. Again, this is going to be heavy on shade stuff.
Yeah, we got a lot. Just like the first episode with the chunky stuff. We had a lot of shade. This episode's going to have a lot of good shade texture for you.
Yeah, a lot of good shade texture. So we're going to dive right in with the Stilby or false spirea. Here's one. It appreciates a little bit of extra moisture in the shade, but it does really, really well with, your chunkier foliages like your hostas and your hellebores and things like that. Some of the cultivars that we recommend that we've used and have experience with would be anything in the Vision series.
Love Visions.
Visions in pink, Visions in red. Isn't there like a Visions in white? All just big, finely textured leaf perennials that have these super vibrant flowers on them. If you want to get in on the foliage color along with these vibrant colors, we recommend Dark Side of the Moon, which is going to be that darker purpley, bronzy colored foliage, or Amber Moon, which is more of a chartreusey colored foliage.
Yeah.
And I love a good yellow foliaged plant.
Same. And Matt mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Stilbies do thrive with consistent moisture. So they're not the kind of shade plant you can just plant, under the base of like a big oak tree, because that oak tree will suck that moisture right out of the soil, and
100%.
They won't make it. So you need to have these planted in a shady area that has good consistent moisture, especially at establishment, make sure you water.
Yeah.
And then eventually they'll adapt to slightly drier soils if you take good care of them at first. And a great multi-season plant. We leave our flowers on all through winter.
Yeah.
Those flower spikes, they turn like a nice brown. And I love the foliage, the deeply cut foliage, which is the point of this. I love that texture to leave kind of in the garden all season long.
Yeah,
so
they're a great plant.
Full season.
Once you can get them, I know for me personally, I've always struggled a little bit with the stilby, just like getting these things established. But once I get them established, it's like very rewarding to me. So, cool, man. So astilbes or false spirea.
And astilbe's counterpart, which is our next plant, is goat's beard. And I call it the counterpart because it's very astilbe-esque in how it looks, the goat's beard. And it has that very similar flower shape and spike. It has a very similar cut foliage. Difference is it can take the dry soils. It's much more adapted to dry soils. And the other difference is it doesn't come in all the colors.
No, you're just going to get the white flower on it. But nonetheless, still a beautiful plant that pairs up well with, I especially like it with the chunkier foliage type stuff. Like say you have a hosta garden and you want to kind of break up some of that chunky foliage in the hostas.
Perfect.
Plant some goat's beard in there that you can get some different sizes. We have a few different cultivars listed that kind of hit on each one of those, like a front of the border, a mid-size, and then something that would be better for the back of the border. So you want to hit on those, buddy?
Yeah, so fairy hair is a goat's beard that's much more small and dainty, followed by chantilly lace, which is kind of a medium size. That's the one I have a few of at home, and I love how it performs.
I love chantilly lace. Yeah.
It's a set it and forget it plant. I mean, it just does its thing. You don't have to do anything to it. And then misty lace is a taller one, 3-4 foot tall. And then like the straight species goat's beard get 4, almost 5 feet tall. So if you're looking for some height in the shade, like a taller cultivar of goat's beard is prime for that.
Yeah. And one thing I will add with the goat's beard too is give them some space to spread out, because they will, I mean, in my experience, they will form a pretty nice colony of plants. They're not, I wouldn't consider them to be aggressive. And it's not like they're a super fast spreading type plant, but they will fill out and make a really nice.
Yeah, I haven't noticed it receding or anything, but I have noticed it just getting girthier and girthier throughout the season and just really taking up a big footprint.
Yeah, for sure. Meadow rue or thalictrum would be the botanical name. This is one that John Greenlee kind of turned us onto last year. We were walking through the shade gardens in Asheville
at PPA,
and I can't remember which garden it was, what the name of it was. I remember the garden vividly, but anyways, I remember we were walking through the gardens with John, and he was just like,
I was running my fingers through this fine foliage and just kind of ogling it, and he just came up behind us and he was like, "Thalictrum, everyone needs to plant more thalictrums."
Yeah,
and I took that to heart because I respect him and his opinions, and we have this in our shade list. This is probably more of a sun to part shade plant. I know I just used a bunch of the cultivar called Cotton Candy in my cottage garden, and I put some in the full shade, the full sun, but then I put some in part shade just to see how it would perform in the different lights.
Yeah, and where we saw it last year in Asheville, it was like, I would say it was part shade. It wasn't like in the full sun, but it was underneath a lot of trees, but the trees had a really tall canopy on them. So they were getting some more light. It wasn't like a thick, dense canopy. It was getting some really nice filtered sun in on it, and it was beautiful. So
really nice fine foliage, really neat foliage when it's not in bloom, but when it is in bloom, it sends up these little
that was weird.
You hear that?
Yeah.
That was like a gurgle in my throat. How would you call those flowers? Like, well, real delicate,
like cotton candy, like just kind of airy, fluffy, cloud light. Yeah, just very whimsical.
Yeah, and then there's a cultivar called Black Stockings, which looks just like cotton candy, but the stems are like a dark purple. Ooh. Really, really neat.
Ooh, I need that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a good one, man. Yeah. So Meadow Rue people, go out and get some. John Greenlee out in California said so.
Yeah.
Bleeding Hearts or the Dicentras. Here, like an old-fashioned plant, a grandma-type plant. Working in the retail we get a lot of people that come in that are like, you know, my grandmother always had these big, beautiful bleeding hearts at her house, and I want something, you know, that like what she had. So fine cut foliage, there is just the regular old bleeding hearts that are the green foliage with the pink heart-shaped leaves that just
blooms
that just, you know, line the stem of the plant. We put a couple of cultivars down, white diamonds, which is going to be like your traditional, but with white flowers, and gold hearts, which is like the species, but with gold foliage.
Yeah, again, like a chartreuse foliage. So it's a really neat contrast.
Yeah. And here again pairs well with like all of your shade garden type stuff. I will say I've seen stands of it in the sun, but it prefers shading, more consistently moist soil. If it's not getting the moisture, it's going to treat itself more like a spring ephemeral, where it'll come up, flower, and then kind of die back for the summertime.
That's what I was just going to say. I would consider this more of a spring ephemeral. It's going to come and do its thing super early, and it's not going to have it's very wispy, so you can really interplant it in with some bigger stuff, and then it just becomes an afterthought once it's done blooming. And in the high humidity, it might even just melt down, turn yellow, and you can just cut it all back.
Yeah.
So,
and it will come back next year, but I know in areas where it's getting some shade and consistent moisture, the plants
will make it all.
They'll make it
season.
All season long. But there again, like you said, it's not like it's some show-stopping plant when it's not flowering.
When it's blooming, one of the most photogenic plants. I love to get out and take pictures of it.
They're absolutely beautiful, and they just make these big, full plants that just really are showstoppers early in the spring. So yeah, bleeding hearts.
Ferns.
Yeehaw, I love a good fern.
Ferns. You know, we can't do an episode on like delicate cut leaf foliage without talking about ferns. And ferns are just a really big group of plants. And I'm not just talking about ferns that you may plant in your garden. Just ferns in general across the world are just very, very common. They're a very robust plant group.
Oh, so, for sure. Yeah.
You know, we could do episodes and episodes about ferns, but neither of us are really that well versed on ferns, other than that we like them.
Yeah, I mean, if we did an episode like that, we would need like an Andrew Lane Gibson,
to
come in, who's like a botanist that can really like break down the fern groups. We just kind of know what works in the landscape, what we've used in the landscape. I mean, like the cinnamon ferns, ostrich ferns, your painted ferns are all some that we like to use. What was the one
I'm just going to check the book to make sure I say it right, but common name is bronze fern or arborvitae fern, Selaginella brownii, if you want to look it up. Really cool little delicate spike moss that looks like arborvitae, like like cedar.
Yeah,
the leaves. So really neat if you can grow it. Megan and I bought some when we were up in down in Raleigh for PPA a few years back.
Yeah.
And I know she bought some for Inniswood, and I don't know how well it's doing. I'll have to ask her. I know that we took some home, and I don't know where it went. It might have died.
Yeah.
So
bummer.
But I was, after Amelia's tournament, we stopped in Perrysburg and went to Oak Openings Metro Park up there near Toledo. And there was cinnamon ferns growing all about, and it was really neat to see it in its like natural environment like that. It sends up that like shoot of spores up the middle that's that cinnamon color and kind of persists all season long. So
yeah, and I love when the fronds of the ferns are coming out and they're just like tightly wound little pinwheels that kind of like slowly open. I think that some ferns, I could be wrong, but I think Nick at work at Dutch Mill was telling me that like the fronds of ferns can be used in cooking and stuff. They're edible.
Yeah, and I don't think all of them, but like fiddlehead ferns, I think are really, ferns, when they're in that curled up stage, make great food.
Yeah, and there again, ferns, they're going to pair with everything great. And then in the shade garden, I know I keep going back to hostas, but I mean, that's traditionally what people go to when they start thinking shade gardens, is their minds go to hostas because hostas do so well. So ferns pair well with the hostas, bruneras, bleeding hearts, like any of this stuff, the ferns are going to do well.
And think about ferns. You see them when you're, maybe out in the woods. Yet you have to kind of mimic that habitat. They're not going to perform well in dry, shitty soils in the shade. You really need to give them nice, rich, compost-rich soil, consistently moist, if you want your ferns to really take off.
Yeah, we don't see a ton of ferns here in Central Ohio. Most of what we see are going to be in kind of wet, organically rich areas is where we're going to see more of them, along the rivers and things. Now, up in the motherland, it's just like fern crazy.
Fern Gully.
It is crazy up there, all of the different ferns. So that's up in northern Michigan, and I love going up there in the summertime, and you can walk through these meadows of ferns and walk through the woods full of ferns, and it's very nice.
Yeah, they're a neat plant because they're different than everything else we're talking about. They're not a flowering plant. They're ferns.
Texture only, man.
Yeah, they don't have traditional flowers. They send out spores, and so they're not angiosperms. That's these other things that we're talking about. But we don't need to get all in the science. But they are a unique group of plants for sure.
Yeah. Jacob's ladder, another one that I would say just the species, I kind of look at it as sort of like a spring ephemeral type thing. It really doesn't show early on in the spring when it flowers blue with this finely cut foliage. Now there's been some great introductions with Jacob's ladder, like the Stairway to Heaven, which Stairway to Heaven is the white variegation, I believe, right? Golden Feathers is similar to Stairway Heaven, but yellow variegation. Oh, excuse me. And then Heaven Sent is just going to be non-variegated, but it's going to have that kind of bronzy colored foliage on it.
Really nice smelling flowers, too.
Wonderful smelling flowers. Early spring flower. Does really well like in shade, part shade, morning sun kind of thing. Again, this is a plant that I would say needs more consistently moist soils. You put it in some really, really dry shade, it's probably going to crisp up on you and just disappear.
Yep.
Look good for a season, and then that would be about it. But
yeah, I have an area in my garden at home where it does really well because it's really shady and it stays really moist. Love it. It hangs around all season. It often acts as an ephemeral, kind of like the bleeding hearts, where it'll grow, do its thing, and kind of go away throughout the season. But if you think about where it grows, it's a native spring ephemeral here in Central Ohio, and it's one of our favorite things to find. I love it because it's very unique, and it's compound foliage, and it's blue flowers, and we get all excited when we see it, we photograph it, and then a month later we go back and it's gone. But a really, really lovely, delicate plant.
Yeah. And on a similar line of Jacob's ladder, we have columbine. We don't have any cultivars of columbine because there's so dang many of them.
Yeah.
This is one of those ones, though, that's, again, going to prefer like a rich, consistently moist soil, likes the shade.
Yes, but the straight species, like the red and yellow flower ones, will grow right out of, like, sheer rock walls.
Yeah.
It's full shade, and it's along a stream, so it's very damp. But they will, because I know that time we were out with Andrew Lane Gibson walking that.
Oh, and they were
just right coming right out of the cliffs.
But I guess it would be more the consistent moisture than it would be the organically rich soil.
Yeah, and they come in all, like Matt said, tons of different colors,
and they reseed around. So if you can get some columbine established, chances are it'll kind of. I don't know if I would say aggressively take an area, but it can be, if it really likes its area, it can be an aggressive plant.
But what's nice about it is it's not like throughout the season, it kind of tapers off. After it blooms, it's nice for a minute, and then they tend to get like a powdery mildew and look kind of shitty, and you can just kind of cut them back and get them out of there.
Yeah, so you definitely need other stuff planted with.
They're not a full season plant, but when they bloom, they're really striking.
Yeah, absolutely. Sweet. That kind of wraps up some of the shade stuff that we wanted to talk about.
So we're gonna great shade options there, though.
Yeah, so we're going to slide right on into the more full sun type plants for your full sun border. And we're just going to start off with one. I mean, we're talking about lace-like foliage here, delicate foliage. So we're just going to start out with Russian sage and the cultivar denim and lace. I mean, what can you say? So Russian sage is great. A later, more mid to late summer flowering plant, flowers purple. I personally love the foliage as it's coming out. Like even this time of the year, it's just got that
silvery,
finely textured foliage, pollinator magnet. But they've come out with a lot of great cultivars that stay smaller in the garden. So traditionally, the Russian sage will get rather large. Now they're coming out with these ones that are going to stay, smaller and a little bit tidier in the garden.
Pairs really nicely with like a Rudbeckia, like a later blooming black-eyed Susan, because they're blooming at the same time. So that blue flower with the silver foliage, with that bright yellow ray flower, really is a nice combination.
Or even echinacea, yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
And these things are tough as nails. Just like the shittiest dry soil you can get to them is good. They want that
road salt, like nothing seems to really affect them too much.
They're very, very hardy, and they grow like really thick woody stems to them too. So cutting them back, isn't just as easy as you think. You really got to get in there and with some nice sharp pruners.
You got to get up in there.
Yeah, like I've tried these. When we've talked about mowing some of our gardens, these don't respond well to the mower. You need to like cut them with,
get some hand pruners.
Yeah.
Sweet. So yeah, Russian sage, people, get some in your border. What do we got next, bub?
Sanguisorba.
Burnet.
Sanguisorba, common name Burnet. And this is one that's rather new to Matt and I, but we're starting to really love it, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a bunch of plugs in of the Plum Drops cultivar.
Yep. Little Brent introduction.
I think this is just one we stumbled upon in one of the Pete Udolph books when we're like, what is that he's got in the forefront there? And we look it up, and it's kind of like a sprawling plant that shoots out these long stems that has these like little purple balls at the end almost, right?
Yeah.
And a neat
almost like a little tiny allium type flower that just sticks
or
gomphrena that just sticks way up there in the air, but it's got that finely cut compound leaf foliage. Yeah.
So we're just starting to experiment with these, so we'll get back to you, but we really like them right now. The foliage has been fantastic, although the ones I planted in the cottage garden are getting munched on by deer. But you don't have deer here at your house.
Not at my house, I don't know.
We'll see what yours do.
Yeah. Just plant so many of them, the deer can't eat them.
I also like to say sanguisorba. It's one of my favorite words to say.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. I like plum drops is one of my favorite words to say.
Well, same thing.
Cool. Geraniums, we put geraniums on there now. Not all geraniums are going to have like a finely cut foliage, but there's one specifically I've got in my garden that's got this real nice kind of finely cut foliage, and that's Geranium album. I'm finding it's a tough one to find in garden centers. I wish that people were growing it more, but here you're talking a hybrid cranesbill or hardy geranium that's only going to get maybe 6 to 10 inches tall, but it's going to have a wide footprint on it.
Yeah, it kind of sprawls and crawls around into your gardens.
Yeah, and I love how it just crawls in and around and through things. It's not so big and dense that it's really going to affect any of those other plants, but it just kind of, it exists with the other plants. The album's got the white flower on it, which...
album meaning white.
Most of your geraniums are going to be pinks, light pinks, or purples. This one's legit solid white.
Yeah, and it's funny, white can sometimes be hard in the garden. It's a weird thing to think about because it's like, it doesn't have the pigments, but it can be hard, and it's looking great. I can see it right out this window, and I love what it's doing in your garden right now. So
me too.
Yeah, and I've got some at home too. It's doing just what yours is doing, crawling around everywhere.
So geranium album.
I like to say album too.
Yeah, like a vinyl album.
My other favorite.
We need to go to the vinyl shop sometime.
Yeah, we do.
And
take off work early sometime.
We need to take off work early. We need to go get some Oreos. And then we need to go to the record shop.
No, we need to go to the record shop first. Because if I get cheesesteaks first, then I'll just go to the record store and take a nap.
Okay. So get off work early.
Yeah.
Do like a true half day or just like a nooner. But we need to
I'll
get
leave that
off
up to
work.
you.
We need to go to the record shop and chill at the record store.
Get a parking ticket. You know,
Get a
the whole
parking
deal.
ticket and don't pay it. And then we need to go to Wario's and get some cheesesteaks and some smashed fried potatoes. Am I making you hungry yet?
Speaking to me now, bub.
You hearing me, Brenna?
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
Brenna, you're invited.
Yeah. All right, moving along. Aquilia or Yarrow.
And Matt says Aquilia. I say Achillea. Potatoes, as long as you spell it right.
Yeah.
But the common name is
Yarrow?
Yarrow.
Yeah.
But I can never remember.
Really?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yarrow.
Yarrow. Yeah, Yarrow.
Yarrow.
Lots of different Yarrows out there. We just wrote down Moonshine and the Summer Sassy series, some of the spreading ones, Tutti Frutti. I can't even remember all of the different ones in the Summer Sassy series, but
we're talking about foliage here, but let me just say this is a blast, a color blast of garden.
Oh, yeah.
Of color for your garden.
What I will say, though, is some of these smaller ones, like the Sassy Summers,
and the Tutti
or the Sassy
Fruttis
series, these things spread. So you really need to like give them room.
Mm-hmm.
If they spread though to the point where you're like, holy shit, this is like getting out of hand. What's great about it is you can easily call that stuff out. Like you can just grab it and rip it out of the ground.
But the Moonshine that we mentioned here, it's got a pale yellow flower. It's more of a clumping.
Yeah.
Yarrow.
Yeah. And there's a ton of different yarrows, a ton of different flower colors. You can get like the Peter Cottontail is really cool one that we use. It's got, rather than that flat top flower, it's got more of that round white.
Reminds me of baby's breath.
Yeah. Really cool flower.
But, this is a foliage episode and they have, nice, like finely cut leaves and kind of almost a silvery cast to them. Some more silvery than others, but that really pairs well with the bright colors of the flowers that sit on top.
Yeah. Yeah, it pairs well with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I use the yarrows up around salvias and stuff.
I know where you're talking about where Post Road dead ends there, and it looks really great right now because your Moonshine is in full bloom next to your Caradonus, or was it? That's another one we say. I say Wasui. Salvia, but that bright purpley blue. It's just such a fantastic combination.
But even the dark foliage, or like on the Caradona, the dark green foliage and the almost black dark purple stems pair nice with that silvery foliage of the yarrow.
Penstemon is another one that one of the red or purple leaf penstemons with that yarrow. Holy shit!
Yeah, so
it's doing something for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the table just moved a little. One of your favorites, and is quickly becoming one of my favorites. I always kind of like tease you about this, and then I was like, shit, I'm just going to buy some and plant it and entertain Tim a little bit. Now I'm like, damn, I'm glad I did, because this flower is sweet. And that's Pasque flower or pulsatilla.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not a big, tall flower. This is definitely like a front of the border type plant. But early, like I just have Pulsatilla vulgaris that's got the purple flowers. I know we put down red bells.
That's the one I'm obsessed with. It's like a maroon flower.
A maroon flower. So I have the one with the purple flower, but these things flower like a lot early in the spring. And then last year I even had them kind of reflower some in the fall when it cooled off a little bit.
But those flowers create those nice puffy...
Dude, you know how many people have walked by my house when I'm out like working in the garden? And they're like, what plant is that with this crazy flower? And I'm like, oh, that's the seed, the seed head. Like it's done flowering.
It's almost like a classy dandelion. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like it's really elegant the way it's much bigger, and it kind of sends out these little swirly, puffy things.
These like fine, like hairy, finely textured like seed heads,
and those persist for a while.
Yeah, and then it's got this finely cut leaf, on it, and
it delicately reseeds around the open spaces in your garden, just like you'd want it to. Mm-hmm. And then the foliage is lovely. It's super deeply finely cut. I love it.
Yeah,
I just love this plant. I mean,
it's a great one. What do you have it paired up with at home? Anything good?
I've got it growing around some of that Biacovo geranium, and it's kind of popping up through there. It's growing really nicely alongside some Spigelia.
Okay.
Some Spidgies.
Yeah, wonderful.
So, really you can't go wrong wherever it is. It's one of those ones like plant your garden, let it go for a season, and then up front where you've got some empty pockets, just throw some pulsatillas in there.
Yeah.
And you'll be quite pleased.
Yeah. Well, I love it, people. So go out and get some, find some pasque flower. Maybe not the easiest plant to find now because it's a real early spring flower.
Oh yeah, you'll find it early in the season, but once it's done blooming, it's a tough one for garden centers to sell, even though I don't know why. It's a lovely texture.
Yeah. So Artemisia or wormwood. Here, this is like, when you talk fine foliage, like this is the fine foliage, right? This is just super finely cut, silver. So we talked about silver mound. Like there's different cultivars that probably all have the word silver in them.
Silver lining, silver king, silver queen.
They all have this like just bright whitey silver foliage on them. The flower on them is what, yellow? It's not anything.
The flower goes bye-bye where I have it.
It's not anything.
In fact, fantastic. I need to go through that vet's border and deadhead all that. I don't like the blooms.
Yeah.
It's the yellow flowers. It's like coleus. It detracts from the rest of the plant. You're growing this straight up for that silvery foliage. Think of like Dusty Miller. When you think of annuals, it's kind of that same idea, but it's a perennial.
Yeah. So I would say pairing this up with like darker foliage type plants, dark green foliage, any of these like bronzy type foliages that we talk about.
Blue flowers,
dark purple
flowers.
flowers, anything that's going to be super dark is going to pair up nice with this. In the sun border, I would stay away from pairing it up next to like the yarrows and stuff because it may just kind of get lost.
Yeah. But the cultivar Silver Mound, which is the most finely cut one that creates literally like a little perfect little mound, that one as it ages will need to be divided because the center will die out.
Okay.
That's one that really needs, you know, after a few seasons, make some more extra plants out.
Yeah, so maybe every 3 years you're going to have to go in and divide it, which is fine.
Great plant for a children's garden or a sensory garden because it's like running your hands through feathers. It's just so soft and supple, and so it's great for those types of theme gardens.
So there was a lady that came in the greenhouse the other day that bought us out of it, and which was odd.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to buy you out of.
And we didn't have a ton, but she bought us out, and she's like, I can't find this anywhere, and I feed it to my goats and sheep and stuff. And I'm like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, I plant it and they eat it. She told me it's a natural dewormer for these farm animals.
Wormwood.
I don't know. She said that it's, she doesn't like to use the ivermectins and stuff that you would traditionally buy at the Tractor Supply Company or wherever to deworm animals, and she said she just feeds it to them and they don't ever have the worm issues. So
there's probably some truth there, because if you had a book about like medicinal plants, artemisias are all throughout it. It's a very classically medicinal plant, and I don't know exactly what for besides those worms, but
I just thought it was interesting.
Cool.
I thought it was interesting. So
yeah.
Coreopsis we put on here. I don't think either one of us are huge fans of Coreopsis, and that's not to say that Coreopsis isn't a great plant, but we just haven't had much luck with it. I don't know if it's a moisture thing, like maybe in areas I've used it, it's gotten too much moisture and hasn't come back, or if the winters have just gotten too cold for it, even though it's supposed to be a pretty damn hardy plant. I know a lot of the big-time designers use it, and it looks beautiful in their gardens, but there again, there's a million different sizes and cultivars of the Coreopsis.
There are, and I'm with you. I don't love it, but if you like Coreopsis, it fits into our category of finely
textured, soft plant, very delicate looking. You're usually going to find yellows, reds, and oranges. The hot colors are warm colors flowering on the Coreopsis.
My biggest complaint with it is that when it's done blooming, it looks bad. It's not just like it's just there. It just looks bad. Personally, that's how I feel about it. And so it's done blooming. You cut it back, and a lot of people say, well, I cut it back and it blooms some more, maybe a little bit, but it's never going to send out that same initial bloom.
Yeah.
and it looks rubbishy once it's cut back. Personally, that's my opinion.
Yeah. So I have noticed that a lot of the guys that are using it in these more naturalistic approach plantings. So the more the meadowy prairie type, not a whole lot of, when you look at it, not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to the garden. It's just a very natural approach.
And that's good. You have a lot around it that can kind of take over when it's done and hide it. But using it as kind of like the showcase in your garden.
That would be like the people that use dianthus and people that use garden phlox.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
It does its thing. It's done. And it's like, come on, we can get more creative. But you know what? We can move on from that.
Yeah,
we won't end on that. We'll end on another one.
We're going to end on, last but not least, Vernonia, or our native ironweed.
I also like that word, Vernonia.
Yeah, it's a very nice...
The tongue nice.
Yeah, Vernonia, or ironweed. We put Southern Cross and iron butterfly, so the species is going to get pretty massive. Some of these newer cultivars are going to stay much shorter and more compact in the garden, so they work in nice into the smaller garden. But yeah, just kind of, we always harp on how much we love Amsonia. It's got a very similar texture, finely cut leaf, similar to Amsonia.
And it's got a similar texture to some of the Coreopsis too. Mm-hmm. The only difference is it stays like real clean and bright green
the plant looks wonderful all season.
And you're like building up to the blooms.
And then it flowers late summer, early fall, so it pairs up well with the solidagos and the asters and
Rudbeckias,
some of these later summer, early fall type flowering plants.
And like Matt said, the straight species that we have that grows here is gorgeous. Like you see it along the woodland edge and in prairies.
How big was that one that we
11 feet.
11 feet tall.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The straight species just gets huge. I mean, it's usually more in that 3, 4, 5 foot range, but sometimes these weird ones just like take off and get really tall.
We might have a photo of you with that somewhere, but it's like in this bioretention swale at a metro park in Columbus, on the north side of Dublin. And it was just this one ironweed that was like legit, 11 feet tall.
But these
these
cultivars and hybrids that we're talking about stay really small and bushy, and like I said, nice and clean throughout the season, building up to just being covered with these nice dark purple flowers.
Oh, beautiful!
And they're pollinator magnets. Just the butterfly. The cultivar here, iron butterfly. I mean, that's implying that the butterflies like it.
Yeah,
that's exactly what that's doing. So
yeah. Wonderful plant. And with some of these, like the Vernonia...
I need to use Vernonia more.
Yeah.
And get real excited about it.
Some of these different ones, like just go out in a prairie someplace, like late summer, early fall, and look at it and see what it looks nice with, and recreate that.
These are the things that if you don't model your garden in this like chronological way, you're missing out on. If you're just really hitting your garden with all these early spring things and then it's done blooming like now... These are the things you need to remember. Let's get some of these to bring on that pop of color later in the season.
Yeah, so it's so easy to get color in the garden, like from April, May, and June.
It's like cheating,
and even into July. But keeping that interest in the color and the textures and stuff, like September, October, and like even into November. That's what's fun about it.
Yeah, that's where your Vernonias come in handy.
Yeah, Vernonias and asters and things. But we're talking finely textured foliage here. So Vernonia, Southern Cross, or iron butterfly.
Yeah.
So cool, man. So that kind of wraps up
our list.
Yeah.
It was a nice. I feel like I didn't speak delicately enough. I should have spoken more delicately throughout the podcast.
Real soft like this.
But it's too late because we recorded and I'm not going to re-record.
Yeah, and I have a loud mouth, so nothing about me talking is delicate. So
yeah.
Cool, man. So that wraps it up. 3-part series on textures. That was fun. I hope that you all got something out of it and you can go out and create some beautiful perennial
a little
gardens.
Textural wonderland in your garden.
Yeah, there was some new people in the neighborhood that walked by 2 nights ago, and I was out pulling weeds, and it was a guy and his wife and their 2 kids, and he walks by and he's like, this is going to sound really weird coming from a guy. And I'm like, well, why? Like, and he's like, but your flower gardens are just beautiful. And I'm like, no, that's not weird. Like, I'm a guy and I'm a horticulturist. Like, why does it have to be this like gender specific type thing? But he was like, and it's not just the flowers, but it's just all of the textures and the movement of your garden. And I'm like, thank you. Like, you get it, like it's way more than just getting color in here. It's about the fine leaves and the chunky leaves and the strapping leaves and how everything works together to create emotion in the garden using more than just,
because there's not always going to be things blooming. So that gives you the opportunity to still showcase these plants.
Yeah. Your salvia that looks badass right now, 2 months from now it's still going to be a nice plant, but it's not going to look nearly as badass as it does right now. So you need more than just color people in your gardens. We need to be focusing also on these textures and stuff and allowing these textures to work together.
Well said.
So
well said.
But yeah, it was a big compliment to me. I was like, okay, I'm doing something right. So
that's great. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
So
cool, man. So that kind of wraps it up for us.
It's a great way to end.
Great way to end. And I don't know what our next topic's going to be on. We have a lot to discuss with that.
You'll find out next week.
In the meantime, I'm Matthew C. the First, joined with Timmy Tight Shorts Fleischer.
Here I am. Here I go.
We love you all harder +2.
Bye.